tonight, we're not telling a love story. We're telling the brutal moment a woman realizes she gambled everything on one choice, and is left with nothing. At Fairmont Crest, after a series of boundary-crossing messages, lingering touches, and an emotional connection pushed too far with Andre, Ashley truly believed that leaving Derek would be her first step into a more deserving love. But in one brief confrontation, Dani used exactly 7 cold, precise words to shatter that illusion, turning Ashley from the only one who understands him into the outsider standing in front of a door slammed shut. In this video, we'll trace the past that led to that moment, break down the psychology of each player, and predict Ashley's dark downward spiral when there is no love, no reputation, and no safe place left for her at Fairmont Crest. This is the story of 3 people who once believed they were standing on solid ground. On the surface, their lives at Fairmont Crest were polished, aspirational, enviable. Yet beneath the curated images, the filtered photos, the charity galas and the perfect statements, a fracture line had been growing for months, quietly, precisely, waiting for the moment everything would break. At the center of it stood Ashley, Andre and Dani, 3 hearts entangled in a storm that none of them could fully control, but one of them undeniably started. To understand the weight of those 7 words Dani delivered to Ashley, we have to rewind to when the line between comfort and temptation first began to blur. Ashley did not wake up one day and decide to destroy someone's marriage. It began with loneliness. She was with Derek, but not really with him. She lived in a house that felt like a museum dedicated to unfinished apologies. Derek's injury, the wheelchair, the fragile routines, the guilt that wrapped itself around every breath she took, all of it formed a cage where she convinced herself that sacrifice equaled love. When Andre appeared as a steady, quiet presence, it felt harmless at first. Shared jokes. Late-night messages just checking in. Long conversations where Andre listened without judgment, where Ashley finally felt seen. Little by little, she allowed herself to lean on him, telling herself it was friendship, that there was nothing wrong with wanting to feel understood. She ignored the simple truth that Andre was not hers to lean on. Andre, for his part, was a man standing between vows and vulnerabilities. With Dani, he had history, complicated, fiery, imperfect but real. They had fought to stay together against expectations, judgment, and their own worst instincts. Yet even the strongest bonds are not immune to erosion. Work, pressure, unspoken resentment, emotional fatigue, they pulled him thin. Ashley arrived exactly when he was tired of being strong, exactly when he questioned whether Dani still saw him or just the man she expected him to be. The chemistry between Ashley and Andre did not explode overnight. It unfolded slowly, beneath carefully chosen words and lingering glances. She became the soft landing he craved. He became the affirmation she desperately needed. One night, the distance vanished. A touch lasted too long, a moment hung too heavy, a boundary broke. It did not stop there. They carried that secret into tomorrow. Ashley told herself that what she felt was rare, that it meant something bigger than rules. She painted herself as the one who truly understood Andre, the one who could give him the peace he pretended to have with Dani. In her mind, Dani became the obstacle. In reality, Dani was his wife. While Ashley was rationalizing, Dani was observing. Dani saw the way Ashley's energy changed when Andre entered a room. She saw how Andre's eyes shifted away too quickly, how answers came a second too late. She heard the half-truths, the careful omissions. She had survived enough to recognize when another woman believed she had found a crack in the foundation of her marriage and decided to pry it open. The tension finally snapped when Ashley, trapped in her broken relationship with Derek and tormented by secrets, discovered the brutal twist: Derek was not the broken man she thought he was. He had been lying. The paralysis, the helplessness, the emotional hostage-taking, all manipulated, stretched, weaponized. In one moment, her world inverted. The guilt she had used to justify her loyalty turned to rage, the excuse she had used to absolve her choices with Andre vanished. She confronted the ugly truth about Derek, walked away, and instead of standing still long enough to own her part in the damage, she ran straight toward the one place her heart had clung to all along, Andre. This was the pivot. Ashley did not simply apologize for past mistakes. She escalated. She approached Andre as if fate had just cleared the path for them. In her mind, leaving Derek redeemed her. Now it was Andre's turn to choose her, to validate the story she had written in her own head, that what they had was inevitable, right, undeniable. She wanted him to step out of his life with Dani and step into hers, as if rearranging a man's reality was a fair price for her pain. Andre listened. And then he made the choice Ashley had been refusing to accept. He chose Dani. He chose his marriage. He chose to see the emotional affair for what it was, a dangerous detour, not a destiny. That choice should have been enough, but Ashley's persistence left a stain that needed to be answered. That answer came from Dani. The confrontation was never going to be loud. Dani had no interest in public theatrics. She understood that real power didn't require raised voices. When she finally stood in front of Ashley, all the pieces were already on the table: the secret messages, the stolen moments, the broken boundaries. Dani saw not just a woman who had made a mistake, but a woman who, even after knowing the consequences, had walked back into her orbit and tried to claim what was not hers. In that still, suffocating moment, Dani did not bargain. She did not plead. She ended the debate with one final, precise strike that shattered whatever illusion Ashley had been holding on to. 7 words. A verdict, not an argument. A reminder that the choice had already been made, and Ashley was not the one he chose. Those 7 words did not just humiliate Ashley. They exposed her as the outsider in her own fantasy, the supporting character in a story she had tried to rewrite around herself. And from there, the story begins to turn darker. Because what happens to someone who has burned their safety nets, destroyed their credibility, and has to face the truth that there is no secret love story waiting to save them? That is where part 2 begins, the collapse. After Dani's words, Ashley walked away with more than hurt feelings. She walked away stripped of narrative, stripped of justification, stripped of the one illusion that had kept her upright, the belief that Andre's heart was her shelter, waiting quietly for the right moment to claim her. Now that illusion was dead. Andre had chosen. Dani had drawn a clear border. Derek had been exposed as a manipulator, but his betrayal did not cleanse her own. And in the cold silence that followed, Ashley discovered what it meant to stand alone in a town that feasts on scandal. The first crack was private, the shame. It came late at night when there was no one to perform for. The memories stopped feeling romantic and started feeling parasitic. She replayed every knowing glance, every deliberate step over the line, every time she told herself that hurting Dani was collateral damage on the path to true love. The more she looked at it without the filter of fantasy, the more monstrous it became. But guilt without stability is a dangerous thing. Instead of leading her to growth, it dragged her into obsession and self-destruction. The second crack was social. Fairmont Crest is not kind to women who lose. People did not say it directly, but they did not have to. Invitations slowed. Conversation shifted when she approached. Smiles became tight, brittle, performative. She felt the invisible label pressing down on her skin, the woman who gambled on another woman's husband and lost. Derek, eager to salvage his ego, slipped his own version of the story into the shadows, painting himself as the injured man who had tried, who had suffered, who had been betrayed by a woman too easily swayed by another man's attention. The truth about his deception circulated, but twisted, diluted. In a world obsessed with perception, Ashley became an easy villain, easier to judge than to understand. Andre tried to move forward with Dani, but the cost of his choices did not vanish. He carried his own guilt, his own questions. Even as he reaffirmed his loyalty, there were fractures in his reflection. He knew he had opened the door that Ashley walked through. He knew Dani's strength came with a memory that did not forget. He watched Ashley's isolation from a distance and felt a pull he refused to answer, because any attempt to reach out, to comfort, to explain, to apologize beyond what had already been said, would only reopen wounds. So he did nothing. And that nothing cut deeper for Ashley than any accusation. She became a ghost in places where she used to feel alive. Every glimmer of hope, every imagined text, every wish that he might check on her, might acknowledge that she was more than a mistake, died unanswered. The third crack was professional. The image she had built as capable, composed, reliable began to erode. People second-guessed her judgment. Small opportunities passed her by. Collaborations she had counted on suddenly shifted direction. Behind closed doors, she became a cautionary tale, proof that mixing longing with ambition is a risk no one wants near their brand. When people looked at her, they no longer saw potential. They saw volatility. Alone in her apartment, Ashley felt the walls closing in. The silence was no longer peaceful, it was a verdict. She tried to tell herself she would rebuild. That she would learn, rise, become stronger. But the universe of Fairmont Crest is not designed to let certain characters rise. Some are written to break. And every time she reached for a new beginning, something small went wrong: a cancelled meeting, a hostile rumor, an unexpected run-in with Derek, a glimpse of Andre and Dani looking composed in public. Each cut was minor on its own, but together, they hollowed her out. Dani, despite her sharpness, was not untouched either. Winners in these stories rarely walk away whole. Knowing that she had won did not silence the insecurities that Ashley had activated. Late at night, Dani wondered if Andre had thought about leaving. Wondered how close he had come. Wondered whether the next woman would be smarter, quieter, more careful than Ashley. She fought not only to protect her marriage, but to trust it again. Andre sensed it. His reassurances, his renewed devotion, became part of a performance they both needed to believe in. But authenticity and performance bled together until neither of them could clearly tell which moments were pure and which were desperate. The darkness of this story deepens because no one truly heals. Ashley does not get a redemptive love arc that proves her heart was just misunderstood. Instead, she wakes up each day more aware that she has no safe place left. Her past with Derek is poisoned. Her imagined future with Andre is gone. The community she tried to impress now watches her with thinly veiled satisfaction. She scrolls through social feeds filled with curated happiness that excludes her, clips of Andre and Dani framed as a power couple who survived temptation, narratives that erase her complexity and reduce her to a footnote, the woman he did not choose. And deep down, she starts to believe them. That is where the despair crystallizes, not in a single dramatic collapse, but in the slow acceptance that she has written herself into a corner with no heroic exit. She is not the tragic heroine. She is not the victorious rival. She is just the reminder. The warning. The proof that if you gamble everything on someone else's choice, you can end up with nothing when they choose stability over you. In a harsher, more honest version of this universe, no one comes to rescue her from that realization. There is no miraculous new romance waiting in the wings, no public apology that clears her name, no twist revealing that she was right all along. The future stretches out in front of her as a long hallway of consequences. She attends fewer events. She speaks less. Her world shrinks. The town moves on from her scandal faster than she does, leaving her trapped in a loop of regret that nobody else cares to revisit. And that is the most brutal ending of all, not explosive punishment, but quiet erasure. 7 words, 1 choice, and a woman left alone with the echo of everything she is now afraid she truly is. And so when the credits of this chapter fade, nothing is truly resolved. Ashley is still standing in the ruins of her own decisions, orbiting a world that no longer centers her, haunted not by one mistake but by a pattern she can no longer rewrite. Andre has chosen his lane, but choice does not erase the imprint of temptation, and every carefully measured step beside Dani is now shadowed by the knowledge of how close he came to letting it all fracture. Dani wears the victory on the outside, poised and controlled, yet in the quiet she is left to wrestle with the invisible scars of being forced to defend what was already supposed to be hers. Fairmont Crest continues to glitter, and that is the cruelest detail of all. The parties continue, the campaigns roll on, the cameras capture curated images of stability and elegance, while the emotional wreckage is swept neatly out of frame. Ashley becomes a lesson no one will say out loud but everyone understands. This is what happens when you mistake borrowed intimacy for a promise, when you bet your future on someone else burning theirs down for you. But stories like this never truly end where the audience expects. A single unanswered call, a chance sighting in a lobby, a leaked rumor, a strained glance across a crowded room, any of it could reopen fault lines that everyone pretends are sealed. Because Andre's guilt is not gone, Dani's trust is not absolute, and Ashley's silence is not healing, it is pressure. At some point, that pressure will demand release. Whether it explodes in scandal, self-destruction, or a darker secret no one is ready to confront, Fairmont Crest is not finished with these three. And if history at this place has proven anything, it is that the moment everyone believes the mess is over is exactly when the next fall begins.